Good afternoon, everybody. Good evening, wherever you happen to be at in the world. Welcome to another live stream from the middle of Texas, USA. And today we are going to talk about whatever we want to talk about randomly. And my mic looks like it's okay. Listening to myself here for a second. Good afternoon, everybody. Good evening. All right. Let me shut that down. Okie dokie dokie dokie. Good afternoon again. Let me refresh this screen. You know, I just want to push a button and everything just start working, but that doesn't always happen. And now my phone rings. All right, well, we'll get started. So I have some folks here from Phoenix, from Boston. Arjan's back from the Netherlands, South America. NR is from South America. And it looks like my chat thing's working up there. Good. Sounds good. The sound sounds good. That's nice to hear. I have this thing called, I'm using a Blue Yeti microphone. And for whatever reason, it thinks that it can't find my microphone. I was using it just the other day. I've unplugged it, plugged it back in, and it doesn't seem to see it. But it's working because it's going out on the audio. But this is cool because this thing lets me set all kinds of different modes. I can set AM mode, broadcast mode, clear and warm. No, clear and modern, warm and fuzzy. I don't know. It has some pretty neat presets. It just can't see the microphone today for some reason. Anyway, I don't need it. We'll just use the straight up microphone. All right. So today we've had a thunderstorm or two roll through. Let's see if you can say that 5 times fast. And which is good because if you haven't, and that reminds me, I wonder if I have that that picture. So I put in a gate thing. I put a little post about this a couple days ago. Large icons. Let's see if I can find the picture. Yep, there it is. So I put a post out a couple of days ago. And I stuck this thing to the fence. It's actually just, it's a schlage. It's just a door sensor. And there's the magnet for it. Hold on a second here. We'll get everything set up. Here's the magnet for it. And then this is the actual Z-Wave device. And it's screwed to the fence post here. And I did it this way because the fence post doesn't move. This gate slams a lot when people go in and out of it. So I'd rather have the magnet be slammed around than the device. But it rained today and we've had, what does it say here? We've had about almost 1/10 of an inch of rain, which a couple times it was raining decently. And so I wanted to see how well this thing actually survives in the rain. I'm embarrassed to say that I didn't have any silicone caulking or anything when I put this out there because it's really a proof of concept test thing anyway and to solve a quick problem. And this is actually plumber's putty. And I know, boy, I'm going to get the flack for that. But it's plumber's putty along the top of this and along the edges. So water will roll off of this down below it rather than going inside the device. And on top where there's a little, I don't know if I have one of these things. There's a little, the thing that holds it closed. Check that out. I do have one of those. Let's see if my secondary camera setup works here. Because we don't have a big agenda today, I'm just going to be randomly rambling about things. So stick around. You might learn something if you are not completely bored by the time I get done with this. Wow, I'm trying to open this thing. Where's the camera pointing? Trying to open this little case to show something that probably y'all know what I'm talking about anyway. But this little thing right here, this is the top of that where the mouse is right now, and puts plumber's putty on here, and it sealed it up. And then of course down the sides here, there's plumber's putty on both sides of that. So we'll see how well that works in a downpour. I need to put silicone on it. Because I don't know what plumber's putty does in the sun. It may just disintegrate for all I know. But it's a very temporary solution. I did some research, and there's a bunch of stuff out there that you can put this in a box, and you can get those little magnets that are made for gates. And I just need to do that at some point. And the reason I did this is because more often than not now, somebody goes through this gate and leaves it open, and then the dog gets out. Because we let the dog out the back door, this gate's not visible from the house without going outside and looking. So now I have a sensor, and you can see that here, my south gate. And I actually have another gate on the north side of the house that I bought another sensor for. And we are going to, let's see here. Let's do that. I'm going to stick this one on that north fence. This is a little EcoLink. It's the same concept. It's a little Z-Wave Plus device, and I'm going to stick it on the north gate, and we'll have a sensor there too. So if either one of those gates gets left open, then it'll be red here for one, and then I've got some automation set up that will let me know about that after a certain amount of time. I think I do. If I don't, maybe we should build that today. Hello, Tony from London. L Strong 2K is here from, I don't know where, but he is here. He, she, I don't have any. I apologize if I get things wrong. As we stream these things, I don't have, number one, I can't pronounce half the stuff I see. And then, handles can be anybody's, you can make up whatever you want, right? So today I do want to talk a little bit about a couple things that I played with recently. And I got a little bit I got one comment really that was about the Bluetooth low energy stuff. James says he has those on his windows and they work well. My house was pre-wired for alarm. And so I have an actual alarm panel with wired magnets. I do have one of those on my refrigerator door. And if you've followed along at all, you see my refrigerator door stuff. And if you leave the refrigerator door open too long, then I get an alert. This might be, for some of you that have seen this before, this is old news, but for those that you haven't seen it, and that's interesting, it's off. Oh, you know why it was off? Because I borrowed the battery from the sensor on the fridge to use the outdoor thing, and then I replaced it and never turned this back on. So I need to re-enable this. So if the fridge door is open for more than 2 minutes, I start getting an alert on all of my smart speakers and then on my pushover on my phone and that kind of thing. So anyway, that's what I do with that. The same concept would apply with the gates. And I don't think I built anything out for the gates yet. Actually, I have. Actually, all I do here is I just notify if the gate gets opened, I'll get an alert that the gate is open. So I look at that binary sensor, that Z-Wave thing I just showed. This thing here is the binary sensor. On is closed, off is closed, on is open, I think. On is open, off is closed. So if it turns on, I'll just get a notification that gate was open. What I need to do is extend this out now and make that an alert. So if it's left open for more than a certain amount of time, then I get an alert that it's still open. What I also need to do is, and I will do this, let's do this right now because we have nothing better to do today. I'm going to copy this and I want to know when the gate's closed because I always get the notification that it's open and I never get a notification that it's closed, and I need to know that because then I look at my phone or whatever and it says the gate was open, but I never know if anyone closed it. So I just take the status here, and what I can do, I think, is I can add another output here. So if the gate is off, it should create a second path. No, it doesn't. That's a lie. What I can do is do a switch, right? I can take the status here and then I can do a switch. And take the status. And when I do this, I'm going to have to remove this on thing. So I can remove this thing right here. And it's just going to send through the status to a switch. We'll call this gate open, closed. And I'll do an on for open. And I'll add another. And these are strings. You can see that very well. Oh, it doesn't make it bigger. And then off for closed. Right. And then I should have two paths, right? So now what I can do is take this, disconnect that wire. They call them wires. And then if it's on, it says allow, but I don't, yeah, I do want to do that. And then I have two outputs here. So let me move all this junk out of the way. So I should have an on and an off. So here is on. That means the gate is open. So I'm going to remove that. That was just a test thing I put up. And then for on or open, it will send me this amount of text, or this text here, south gate open, and it'll send it over to pushover. And then I can actually just copy this, put it here. And for off, I'll just change the value of the title for one, and then I will change this to closed and change it to closed again. And what this does now is it just tells me when the gate gets open or closed. What I need to also do, and we don't need the rest of that, deploy it. So whatever I get here, the output of the status, so this is a status change. So this, you can see this here, this is the state node. So when the state changes, it will send it to the switch node, and then it goes either on or off. So on, the gate's open, off, the gate's closed. And now what I need to do is create the whole, 2-minute timer thing or whatever. If I want, let's say 30 minutes, because I'll leave that gate open when I'm mowing the lawn or whatever for, let's say 30 minutes or 45 minutes. I don't want it alerting me every 2 minutes it's open. So I do want to notify me every hour or so or something. So I'll build a timer for that at some point. Tony says, I did something similar for my front gate, put mine in a waterproof exterior electrical box and extended the reed switch using an industrial waterproof machine. Yep, I have. That's what I've seen people do is they take those little boxes, like a little waterproof enclosure. Something like this, I think. You can take this little box and you can put that that Z-Wave sensor in there. And actually, the Z-Wave sensor, the Schlage that I have, has two contacts on it. You can extend that out with what you said, Tony, with that reed switch. So waterproof reed switch, or a reed switch, I guess. I've seen these in like little metal deals. Yeah, something like this, right? So you just take a waterproof switch, something maybe along these lines, and you just put this on either side of the fence, like the gate and then the post, like I did in the picture here. So rather than having this box here, you'd have a magnet and you would have the switch over here or whatever. Run those wires down into that weatherproof box and then attach those to that. And here's another example. I've seen this metal one before. And then you can just have that reed switch on or off inside that thing. And let's see if I can Schlage Z-Wave door switch. I'm doing this because I want to show the picture of the contacts. Let's see if this is it. Yeah, it's something similar. Do you have an inside picture? Is there a manual? This is what happens when you try to find something while you're on, while you are doing a live stream. Let's look for images. Door locks. Lots of door locks. I do make a lot of door locks. I have quick sets myself. Contacts. I wonder if it'll show the inside of it. Yeah, now I'm just going down the rabbit trail. Anyway, I wonder if this has it. Let's play a little bit here. This one. We'll open this up. Get my trusty knife out here. And we'll just pop this open and see. So this is that same kind of thing. I don't want to pull the battery stuff out yet. I'm not ready to turn this one on yet. Let's see if I can just cut my finger off. You probably can't see that. There we go. Come on, open up. Okay. So this has the same thing, and you can kind of see it here. You can see right here that you have two little contacts, and you would take that reed switch here, and you'd run the wires out of the box, seal the hole in the box, and then put that reed switch on the fence post. So this could be waterproofed as well. Anyway, there you go. So I'm going to play around with that. The proof of concept, and I've seen people do this. I've seen people put that stuff on and leave it, and it doesn't ever have to be waterproofed. Again, we're home tinkerers, and for those of you that want a definite kind of no weather, full weatherproof deal, we're not talking about that one yet. Weatherproof thing, then yeah, you want to do that, and I may do that. One of the other things that led me to just leave it the way it was is I have that one small little white thing on there, and you can get the brown case. This one I just opened has a brown case. I showed that to you a minute ago. So I could swap that out and just use the brown case on that fence, and you would hardly see it. So aesthetics is one. That box, I suppose, could be painted. It just depends on your use case, and everything's based on the use case. All right. As I'm talking here, make sure you're asking me questions. I do a lot of videos, how-to videos, and the live streams are really for just talking through things and answering questions if you have them. And I like to do that in the live stream format because I can do a better job of kind of explaining things in this format than I can just talking comments on the YouTube videos themselves. So the idea is that y'all ask me questions, and I try to do my best to answer those as we're live streaming here. I want to talk about this BLE stuff while I'm looking for questions. You'll notice here that I have this little thing here that I'm monitoring my truck with. And I just did a video on this, and I do have to make I want to make a comment about that because I did get a comment from somebody based on, I think, something I said. I'm using this little blue charm beacon, and this blue charm beacon is that's the box it's in. You can watch the whole video, and I encourage you to watch it because it talks about just using a BLE iBeacon device in general. It doesn't have to be the blue charm. It can be anything. I just bought that on my own. No one paid me for that thing, or that's not sponsored. But I set it in my truck, and I tried different places. I had it up above I have an upper console in my truck, and I have, I stuck it on top of my radio here, and I stuck it here. And my truck, if you'll notice, is actually sitting out in the driveway. So that little device is sitting there in the truck, and it's behind a kind of a metallic what was that thing called for the window shade thing. So facing the garage, and that's currently the way it is right now. And then I have in the garage, I have the ESP32 that I talked about in the video. And in the garage, that ESP32 is sitting up above here. So the truck is kind of over in this area outside. And then this thing is sitting up on the shelf. The ESP32 is sitting up on this thing. I taped it to the power plug so that it would be, the antenna is facing outward. But it just isn't enough to have it pick it up. And in the comment I got was, I assume, I'm reading into this a little bit, that the reason I made the video and then I said it doesn't work. Well, I made the video to show how to use the iBeacon stuff. And I said in the video I was going to test out and see how reliable this was. If I were parking the vehicle in the garage, this would work fine. I think the problem I have is I have a metal garage door. And also, if you were to take apart the wall here, there is a radiant heat barrier, which means there's all tinfoil on the other outside part of this wall. So this is just basically all metal. And even when the garage is open, this is shielded because the door opens and shields that as well. And so far it has not been reliable, but I'm not faulting the ESP32. I'm not faulting the blue charm. I don't want to say any of that stuff is messed up. I'm just saying you're taking a Bluetooth signal, shooting it through a metal shield here, through a metal door into the garage, and it just isn't strong enough to pick it up. I even experimented with setting it to max power for the iBeacon, which is 4 dBm according to the manual, and it doesn't seem to help. So I looked at maybe adding some external antenna to the ESP32, and that may be something that I experiment with, or something else. The point I want to make with this is that I'm not doing anything in terms of automation when I roll into the driveway, although that would be really cool. What I would like to do when I roll into the driveway is have the door open. That would be pretty awesome. Because I have one of those controls that's you've got to push the button, and sometimes it takes me 5 or 6 tries to get that button to open the garage door. Even then, that's made for transmitting that signal. It doesn't work. So I would love to have it work. But the point is, I want to be alerted if in the middle of the night my truck disappears, i.e. someone steals it. That's kind of where I'm going with this. So if it disappears, if I set it for like a minute or 2 minutes, a notification, then that's fine. It's not for turning on lights or anything like that, and based on automations, not yet. So now I'm going to have to go back and figure out what kind of options I have for that. And it may be putting an ESP32 in beacon mode in the truck and running it that way. Let's see here. Let me jump in some comments here. Have I found Node-RED to be more responsive and faster to construct automations? I don't notice any difference, actually. It seems to me that it works just fine either way. In fact, I've been doing Node-RED automations for a long time, and if you look here at the number of flows I have across the top, all this stuff is running. I've got some stuff here, some light actions, some alarm actions, door actions, fridge door monitoring, motion monitoring, monitors for stuff in the house, flood monitoring, smoke detector, weather, miscellaneous. I just have all these flows. So Node-RED's not insubstantial of what it's doing, and it seems to be just fine. So in terms of the difference between speediness, because it's all on the same device and it's talking back and forth on the device and not having to go out the network and back around or somewhere else, I really don't notice any difference at all. And it works fantastic. In terms of building the automations, in the early days, this was so much faster because we didn't have the UI. Now building an automation, simple automations in Home Assistant is pick a whatever. Let me just pull one up here. Oops, wrong button. So I can go C on the keyboard, and I want to go to navigate to automations. If I want to build something simple, it's just a matter of, hey, what I want to call it, what I want to do. I want to do a state change. I want to pick a state change, motion, something or other. And then it goes from point A to point B, or status A to status B. And then I say, do something, turn on a light. I mean, it's super fast to build it this way now. Something simple like that in Node-RED is easy. In fact, I think I did the door. What did I do recently? So I did the truck is gone. That's my automation. So if we look at what I did there, I did it here. And all it does is if that ESP32 detects that the device is gone, the blue charm, and you can see this in the video, then it sends me a notification. So really, building it, simple ones, is probably just as easy as coming over here and finding the nodes and putting them in. In fact, it could be a little bit easier for simple ones, or a little bit faster. Easier, they're both easy to me. When you get into complex automations, when we look at something like the fridge door, where you've got a 2-minute timer, you can build those probably pretty simply in Home Assistant's UI. But now I can visually see what the path is and what's going to happen when these things go on, especially this fridge temp thing. I can see that I've got an option here for 2 paths. If it's above 45 or below 45, I go different directions. And then I send something out based on that. So it just depends on how complex you go. I tend to stick with Node-RED because I'm familiar with it and I've used it a bunch. And I think that for me, visually speaking, I can see what's going on a lot better than I can going back and looking at automations in the UI. So that was a long answer to the question. Responsiveness, I don't notice any difference. Node-RED for easy ones might be a few more mouse clicks than using the UI and Home Assistant nowadays. For complex ones, it might be better because you can visually see what's going on. So that's my thoughts on that. Can I recommend an ESP32 board from AliExpress or Banggood? If you go to any of my videos and you go to kit.co, you can go to my kits, and you have under live stream and Home Assistant gear. If you click on Home Assistant gear, and I think I can just put this link in here actually. Let me just throw this in here. If you go here directly, I have the ESP32 boards linked. This is the one I'm using, the D1 Mini, the Node MCU ESP32. There are some variations to the board. This is the one I'm familiar with and the one that I use. There's a 32U now, I think, that has an external antenna connector, and that may be something I play with in order to get a better signal from the Blue Charm in the truck. I don't have any of those right now. I've seen people modify, and if you look at this ESP32 on the top, if it'll focus, that's a ceramic antenna. And that ceramic antenna, I've seen people attach stuff to that to make that work better. Can't get it to focus. But anyway, that little gray blackish thing on top is the ceramic antenna. And you can modify it a little bit, but then you've got to cut traces and solder and a bunch of other stuff, which I'm completely comfortable with. But I don't know what better performance you get out of it. I've seen people say that it actually makes it worse, and I think probably because they're adding the wrong kind of antenna, or the wrong impedance, or the wrong length of coax, or something else. These are built specifically and tuned specifically for the frequency they're used, and if you start mucking with it, then you're going to end up potentially making it worse. If you get one with an external antenna connector on it, then you can just plug in the antenna like one of those Wi-Fi antennas, and it might be better. But this is the one I use. So if you're interested in it, jump over here to this and grab it. Let's see. So Tony says, I'm actually using a 433 megahertz transmitter at the moment, but it does miss some events. So you're talking about, Tony, the one for the gate, I'm assuming, and we'll see if they're available in the UK. I'm not sure what that one's about. The delay between me saying something and y'all responding in comments, sometimes I get a little confused about which topic we're talking about. What do I think about ESP Home? I don't have an opinion on that. I think that Nabu Casa, which is actually staffed or manned by Home Assistant developers, is done well. I haven't had any issues with Nabu Casa. ESP Home coming under Nabu Casa, it's all under the same umbrella. I don't foresee that we're going to have a problem with it because they want to make things work just as well as we do. If you ask me, what do I think about ESP Home coming under, pick your favorite, major technology company, then I would be a little more concerned about that. There's rumors about Discord being purchased by a certain company, and I don't know how that's going to shake out in the end. So we'll see how that happens. But ESP Home coming under Nabu, I don't think there's any issues with that at all, from what I understand. I mean, ESP Home is integral to a lot of stuff that all of us in Home Assistant are doing. If they decided they wanted to do something bad with it, I think there would be enough of an uproar that they would reverse it. I'm not concerned. I think because it's still under the same group, that's the kind of the core of Home Assistant, and I think we'll be fine with that. Node-RED looks to be amazing for doing complex automation. What time do you decide to use Node-RED instead of automation? So let me tell you a little bit about my history. I kind of mentioned this a minute ago. When I first started using Home Assistant early on a few years ago, the UI was not where it is today. Automations were all YAML based, so you had to write them all in YAML, and you had to understand what they were doing. I have a little bit of a programming background. I've developed some applications on my own. I understand. My mind thinks that way, so I can do it. But when I started doing complex things and wanting stuff to be easy and quick, I jumped onto Node-RED, and I've been on Node-RED almost as long as I've been on Home Assistant because of the ease and just mapping and viewing out these flows and these paths that I put together. So I decided to do it right away. It can look daunting, but honestly, if you start playing with it a little bit, it's really not that bad. I have some videos on that. I've done some live streams on some different things that I've done. In fact, my last live stream was the difference between Node-RED automations and Home Assistant automations. And not really a difference, but I took a few of mine in that I did a Node-RED and tried to mimic them in Home Assistant, and I was successful. So I really, there's this purity thing. If you want to be 100% Home Assistant based and not have the Node-RED add-on and use Node-RED as an add-on, keep everything internal and native, then you want to go the HA route. If you don't mind having some add-ons that do some of the work, then the Node-RED add-on is probably good for you too. You just have to learn how Node-RED works. And there's a lot of, you look here and there's a lot of stuff going on. But it's a lot of the same stuff. And probably when I look at this, there's probably some cleanup. I can make things a little bit more efficient. I can use fewer nodes to do the same thing. So it looks more daunting than it might actually be. I mean, there's a lot of lines and funny stuff. Let's get rid of this sidebar. I mean, you just see all this stuff, and there's connectors that do all kinds of stuff here. There's tons and tons of nodes that do all kinds of. I haven't even scratched the surface at all on all these things that you can do with Node-RED, and just people write these nodes, and you can actually go download and add more nodes in here. I actually have a dashboard somewhere on here that I was messing with that allows you to you can build a dashboard in Node-RED for stuff too. But I like it for the simplicity of viewing what's going on and following the path. That's how my mind works. How am I running HA within a Docker, or do you have Hasio? So Hasio, I don't know if that's the term anymore. And this is educational, not trying to get mad at anybody, or not trying to say anyone's wrong. There is a naming convention, and over the years it has evolved. And I just want to point this out real quick. So Hasio is Home Assistant. Oh, that was 2 years ago. That's kind of old. I know Home Assistant. Here we go. So directly from the source, Home Assistant Core is a Python program. Is this going to be the right thing? So Home Assistant is a combination of Home Assistant Core and tools, which allows blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that's not what I was looking for. Someone's probably already answered this while I'm looking for the answer. What is Hasio? Hasio. Again, this is 2019. This might be valid still. What is Hasio? Hasio is Haspin and 101 cookies. Well, cookies are delicious. That's what those are. So Has is just short for Home Assistant. Home Assistant Core is the main Python program. That's the Home Assistant Core. That's the main thing. Home Assistant, Hasio, before it was renamed, is basically a Docker version of Home Assistant. Home Assistant Supervised is a name of Home Assistant when it's necessary to make a clear distinction between Home Assistant and Home Assistant Core. HasOS is a Linux appliance distribution that's just enough to run Home Assistant. Haspin is legacy old stuff. So let me go back to the question now to confuse myself. I am running Home Assistant Supervised on a Blue, Odroid, Home Assistant Blue, which is just an Odroid. I also have Home Assistant Supervised on a Raspberry Pi 4, which is my kind of test development thing. My data is stored. My data is stored natively. However, that what is it? SQL? I think they're using SQLite. No. Whatever the native version of the storage option is for Home Assistant, that's how I'm doing that on Home Assistant, my Blue. I am running an external hard drive on my Raspberry Pi 4, and I used this thing called Datactl. And with Datactl, it moved everything over except for the boot from Home Assistant from the Pi SD card over to the external hard drive. This is not booting off the hard drive. All it's doing is the main part of the data writing is going over to the hard drive to save the SD card. And somewhere in here is the data control stuff. I'm looking to see, maybe this is it. No. I believe it's called, yeah, so I'm trying to find it. It's fairly recent, but I'm trying to find the actual verbiage here for you. So all you do is something like this: data control or Datactl, move, and then the partition of the drive that you want it to go to. And this is where it talks about. So what's left here? So it moves the data partition. So all of your data is moved over to your hard drive. So you're not writing to the SD card all the time. You're writing to the external hard drive, which saves your drive. So that's what I use. So I have two different options that I'm running. I also store everything. I log everything to InfluxDB on my production system that then I write to Grafana. So I am running InfluxDB, and then with Grafana, I start documenting, or I start graphing all this stuff. And so I'm a data nerd, and so I like the graphs. And so I do have that as well. That's another way I store data on my production system. I really appreciate the questions today. This is pretty cool. I like being able to answer these questions for you. So you had issues, needed to restart almost every day. I'm curious what the reason was on that, whether it was a loading issue or you had something else. I have not had to do that. In fact, I rarely have to restart anything. The blue did lock up one day, and I don't really understand why. I think, I think the blue locked up because I had a dashboard open overnight on my laptop, and the laptop went nutso or something, and then it just overloaded the blue. I rebooted, and that's the only time I had to do that. You can get an ESP with an external antenna. You could extend the antenna out the door opening. Yeah, James, that's what I was talking about. You can get that ESP32U or something like that, and it has an external antenna connector. And then I could put the antenna outside. Or even that, I could put it up maybe in the attic where it can see down on the car, but there's not a bunch of metal in the way. What about setting up Wi-Fi pointing to the driveway? That's what I did, early info if anybody's coming home. I'm not sure how I'd use that, actually. I have cameras, so I have that camera that could tell me if someone was showing up. I guess you're talking about like with a phone or something, someone driving up the driveway or up the street. You would get their Wi-Fi notification through whatever stuff you're using. I could see that. I don't know if that would work in this case. Again, I'm not trying to determine if someone's driving up the street. I'm just wanting to know if the truck disappears out of the driveway unexpectedly and then, someone borrows it and not supposed to. So it's kind of a notification for that. I would wait and order one of Quinn's ESP32s from Dr. Z's. So what is Dr. Z selling? Is this a new version of ESP32? DigQuad DIY RGB. I guess that's part of his LED stuff. I know he's doing a lot of LED stuff. Here we go. Quinn LED. I know he talks about Quinn all the time. Several PC boards. Yeah, and they're doing all these light stuff. Are they using ESP32s? And is that what we're talking about on that? Get out of these search things. For your truck issue, why not? Ask me the whole question there, Sonny, because I don't know what that refers to. Someone did a car presence detector using Wi-Fi and an ESP8266. The chip powers up when you start the car. When it's seen on the network, it opens the garage door, then it powers off, closes the door. Yeah, and that's a different scenario. I want to know if the car disappears. So what I need presence there all the time. And then if the presence goes away and I'm not driving it, or someone in the family's not driving it, then I will know that something bad has happened. It should not be going away somewhere. So that's kind of the point of that. I could do something like this if I wanted to open the door, like you said, close the door. But again, it's not for making things happen necessarily. That would be a nice side benefit. It's just to make sure the car's in the driveway all the time. Whoops. Wi-Fi would have better range. Have it power up between a certain time and notify you. Run a TensorFlow script that checks if there's a car on an image that is refreshed every X seconds. Not soon. Yep. TensorFlow. Here we go. That is actually on my list of things, and I keep looking at it saying that would be kind of fun, and then I don't do anything. You are correct. I do need to. That would be another way, and that would be kind of fun to play with as well. So let me talk real quick. The BLE, the whole Bluetooth low energy thing, and I will say I'm new to that in terms of doing what I'm trying to do here. And so I thought it would be a quick, easy way to do that, and it turns out it didn't work the way I wanted to. So TensorFlow would be kind of fun. TensorFlow would also tell me a bunch of other things, I think, as well. That may be my next thing, Sonny. That may be something I really dig into and kind of understand. Because I really want to get an idea what this does, and I've seen it before. I don't know what the hardware requirement is. I wonder how much work it takes, and then what you feed into it. I'm getting a camera image, obviously, from my Blue Iris system. I'm actually pulling it from the URL that Blue Iris provides for JPEGs, motion JPEGs and stuff like that. Hey, Bob. Hey, Carlos. Welcome. Bob. Oh, no. What were you saying, Bob? Quinn LED has designed a much better D1 Mini long-range module. I think I know why. I think in watching their stuff that they have an issue getting control of the LEDs on certain parts of the house wherever they install these things. And I think that by putting up the D1 Mini long range, that's actually a better thing. I would love to have a longer range. Now, not for Wi-Fi necessarily. I don't have a problem with the Wi-Fi because that D1 Mini sitting in the garage is like a foot from the AP that's sitting right there. It's the Bluetooth part that's really the issue. All right, so is there a way to expose a switch to disable an automation that lives in node red? Is there a way to expose a switch? Hey, so Bob, why don't you give me an actual example of what you're trying to do? I think I could work better with that because I'm not sure what necessarily that means. And when you say switch, I'm assuming you mean like the switch node. Where's node red? I will find it. So this is a switch node. So I'm assuming you're talking about that. Let me go back to the question. So let me know what specific example you're talking about. And so I guess CD-ROM retweeted that. I retweeted. Send it again. On the HA Blue, it's HAS-OS. So HAS-OS. Okay, so yes, that I stand corrected. So if you read the definition, the blue or the Odroid is a HAS-OS because it's just an appliance. When I was running it before on my Mini, I was running a Docker setup on Ubuntu, which apparently is unsupported because it would tell me that every 5 minutes that I was running an unsupported, unhealthy setup and it wouldn't do things, which is one of the reasons I went to the blue or the Odroid because it's a fully supported setup. So thanks for the correction. Who told me that? CD-ROM told me that. Thanks for the correction on it. It is HAS-OS on the blue. Data control, how's it going? I'm afraid to move mine. Now I'm not running production on data control, but I am running the other one on it. and I haven't had any issues on that one. I am running a secondary AdGuard server. I am running, not really running DuckDNS. It's on there. It's running. ESP Home was running. The big one is Nginx Proxy Manager. This is actually on my test setup, my development box, Raspberry Pi 4. I'm running the Proxy Manager. And then I'm running ZWave.js talking to my production system. All of that's running on the box. And it's running with data control or Datactl with no issues at all. I always say knock on wood for those kinds of things. I hope that's someone's license plate they just posted. Huh. I'm comfortable with it. I don't have any issues with it. What I haven't tried to do is do a restore or do something else with Datactl to see how that performs. If I can do a full restore and get stuff back and running. If I don't know where the data lives. Like when you do a snapshot, is it pulling the snapshots from, that directory on the external hard drive? I'm sure that some of y'all know the answer to that, but those are the things I don't know about Datactl. I do know it works fine, and I've had zero issues with it. All right, so where are we at? It should have been standard for HA, especially before SSD boot came along. Should have been. It wasn't. I'm assuming you mean that's something they should have thought about doing, probably. But if you try to take the SD card, if you try to tell someone they need an external drive in order to run this, then you've added another piece of equipment they have to get. HouseOS is really the way to go these days for SBC and VM builds. Okay. You can now with a Pi 4 run and boot from a USB SSD disk. I don't have a CD SSD. Yes, you can. One of these days when I get brave and have more time, I will do the whole SD card or SSD boot. I don't have an SSD. I just have it's just a regular magnetic disk that I run external. But yeah, boot off the SSD and be done with it. And you don't have to worry about the SD card anymore. That's good. I'm running on a headless NUC i5. NUCs are very powerful. They are probably overkill for just that, but they will definitely scale if you need to do more stuff. So he redesigned a D1 Mini. Yep, I need to look into that a little bit more. The ESP32 Dr. Z's is just pre-flash with WLED. They also come with headers pre-soldered. If you're going to do TensorFlow, check this out. Whoops, that opened in the wrong window. Hold, please. What are we looking at here? USB accelerator. I think you talked to me about this before, as a matter of fact. It's an accelerator that adds an edge TPU coprocessor. So that's what I was wondering about. You've got to have a little bit more horsepower to do this stuff, right? But it runs this kind of processor, a TPU, which I believe is that's the AI kind of stuff. I'm not well versed on it, but I do remember the TPU stuff as being something that, it performs 4 trillion operations per second using half a watt for each operation. For example, it can execute state-of-the-art mobile vision models such as MobileNet V2 at almost 400 frames per second. I run about 15 frames per second on my cameras. I think it'll handle that. Supports TensorFlow, which is probably talking about. Yeah, that looks fun. That looks like something fun to play with. I mean, is that popular for people out there? Are a lot of people doing TensorFlow kind of things? Is that the new hotness? They sold the beta stock of new redesigned ESP32 modules. The production run will be available this month. May become free flash that you can be used any firmware. So I guess I could just go in there and use ESP Home and find it, I'm assuming. You can use Blue Iris and Plate Recognizer. I did. Well, I don't know about Plate Recognizer, but I used whatever their internal. Why does it keep going to that? Hold on. I want it to open up in my current window. It's not going to. Get over here. What in the world? Okay, well, I'm trying to get it to show. Not that way either. I don't know why all of a sudden my things aren't opening. Plate recognizer for Blue Iris. Oh, I see. These are the plates that you were showing me in the picture. So I had this turned on for something. It was in Blue Iris, and it told me I ran too many queries. I think it's trying to look at every car that goes down the street. I wonder what you do with that information. Does it give you the person's information? I think that'd be kind of weird. Can you use Blue Iris? Yeah, I tried. I have had that up and running, like I said, but I didn't do anything with it. On the Node Red thing, when an automation is built in HA, there is a switch that is created to enable or disable the automation. Oh, I see what you're saying. So in Node Red, if you don't want it to run, there's a couple things you can do. You can create a flow, or one of these things. I guess these are flows, and this is also called a flow. If I didn't want any of this to run, I would double click on it, click on disabled, and now nothing on this flow is going to run. Alternatively, and you saw this if you were at the early part of the stream, if you saw what I did here, when I had my fridge door, I took the battery out and it kept alerting me every 2 minutes because it thought it was open. I double clicked on the node, disabled the node, and now it doesn't ever do anything because this node feeds these nodes, and because this one is disabled, it will never run. So there's a way to turn off things either through just disabling the trigger node, which I guess you can call it a trigger node, or turning off the whole page, the whole flow here. So just disabling this disables everything that would run on this page. So in terms of turning off or on an automation through Node Red, that would be my way of turning the automation on or off. So yes, you can do that. Just like you can come over here and you can go to automations and you can just flip the switch on or off. It's essentially the same thing. You're just doing it a little bit different way. And yeah, so I think that's the question. TensorFlow is build your own AI. Yep. Nightbot's getting noisy again. So here is the ESP32. Let me see if I can open it this way this time. Yes, I want to go to this side. Awaiting feedback. Okay. So where does he... Either earlier analog boards used that or recent... Now the ESP8266 does not have Bluetooth, but the Mini does. So I would have to be something with Bluetooth in it. The board's failing, so I decided to create my own version of them. Generally pin compatible. I guess he prints his own stuff or gets it printed too. That's interesting. It's module version E, and here's the antenna connector. I don't know, what is that? How do you connect to that thing? More information. Antenna plus board. Antenna external. So let's see what this looks like if there's a picture. Introducing Ethernet boards. Oh, that's fun. Ethernet pinouts. Physical address of the chip. Yeah, they're targeting their WLED stuff because they need the range for the WLED. So they're building a complete WLED controller with the ESP32 boards. Yeah, so I would try one of those if it had extended range for Bluetooth. I need to do a little more research on this. Keep referencing that. Based on the D1 Mini 32, there's a few differences though. The article shows the different. Okay, so here's the pinouts different, I think. In conclusion, they're still general purpose development boards with just my twist on it and some uniquely added features. What are the features? All right, so it uses version E, uses the newest chip, enhanced Wi-Fi stability and security, lower power usage, enhanced onboard capacitors, better stability, Very dim power. Yeah, that's nice. The power LEDs on the current ones are hugely loud. They're very loud. All right, that's interesting. I may end up playing with those too once I get back into production. They're coming out with one that has RJ45 Ethernet. PoE would be nice for that. Are those PoE? I wonder. All right, so person detection to trigger lights, automation, and license plate recognition detection in Home Assistant is hugely popular right now. I need to make some videos on this stuff. I always love having ideas for videos just because. All right, on the Node Red thing, disabling the automation that way cannot be exposed to the front end UI. Are you trying to programmatically disable it, I wonder? Because that, I don't think so. But you can, I mean, if you're trying to figure out a way to programmatically not run something, I think it's just some more logic you add in here to the front of one of these things. Only run it if X, Y, or Z is true. So that may be something to do there. What else here? How to take a binary sensor into Node Red and have it speak when the state changes. I need to add a toggle to the front end for my wife. Toggle of what? I hate calling you CD-ROM, unless you just like to be called CD-ROM. What's your name, CD-ROM? All right, so let's talk about this one. How to take a binary sensor into Node Red and have it speak when the state changes. All right, let me go to my miscellaneous, or let me go to the playground. Find a blank spot here. So a binary, let me read that again. Take a binary sensor into Node Red and have it speak when the state changes. So here's a state node, trigger state. And sometimes I get these confused, right? You have trigger state, you have event state, and we'll look at both of these. We'll see which one's the best one to use. So we'll leave that alone. That's probably not it. So trigger state. So let's call it binary sensor test. It's binary sensor speak. And the entity ID, so you'd have to pick one of your entity IDs, a binary sensor. So we'll just see what we have on the binary sensor department. So the binary sensor, let's do motion. Let me find a motion one. So let me find motion actually. Front hall, how about kitchen motion? I hope that's a valid one. And then this state is, if we want to say, so you're saying have it speak when the state changes. So what do you want it to speak only when it goes from one state to the other, or if the state, you want it to speak to state or something? That would be a question. But let's say it goes to on. And you want to speak. Now, this is the part where you need to have something that can talk. And you can have, I use smart speakers. So I have the Alexa stuff, and I actually have one of the Google Minis. And those I have set up to speak. One does TTS, so text to speech. That's the Google one. The other ones, the Echo ones, those are the ones that, and I forget that that's a trigger word. So apologies for whoever I just triggered. The Alexa, that's what the Dr. Z's calls it. So you have to have something that can speak. So let's just assume you have one of those smart speakers, and we'll do TTS. And so here's the motion. So I want to say if it turns on, then that means it's going to come out the allowed output here. And we're going to call a service. And all of these nodes right here, if you collapse this, you'll notice they all go away. If you collapse this. Hello, collapser. Oh, okay, so I lied. You have to click it. All of these blue and pink one, those are all Home Assistant nodes. And they're stuff that can interact with Home Assistant. So this is a section you want to play around in. So the binary sensor, we're checking the status, and this is probably a bad term. We'll just call this kitchen motion. Naming things is important when you go back later and try to figure out what you're doing here. So kitchen motion is either it goes to on, it's going to be allowed. Off would be this blocked one. So we're going to call a service. And on this service, we're going to look for TTS, which is text to speech. The service is going to be, I believe it's Cloud Say. And I don't always remember this stuff, so I have, and rather than inventing the wheel every time I build an automation now in Node-RED, I go look at one of my other flows and figure out what it was. The entity ID is going to be, I know this thing is up here, so it's going to be that speaker. That's the name of my Nest, or yes, my Google Nest Mini that I have. And then the data is going to be the words. Now this is the part where I want to get it right. So I'm going to say done for now. Now this is very basic. Anytime it goes to on, it's going to start talking. But what I want to do is get the words it says. And for that, let me go back over here to one of my other things. And I do this now with the HVAC stuff. And I speak it this way. So one of the things you can do also is once you build it out, you can just copy these nodes, which I'm going to cheat. I'm going to do that. I'm going to go back over here to my playground as soon as I get out of the way. And I'm going to paste it in here. And instead of just building a new one, I'm just going to use this one. So anytime there's motion on the kitchen motion detector, I'm going to change the name, motion detected. TTS, Cloud Say, media player, same speaker. And for this, I'm going to use this data. And it's going to have the component message. And then it's going to have what the actual message is. In this case, I would change this to kitchen motion detected. And be done with that. And everything else is the same. This gives you some ideas what you need to put into those sections up here. So if you want to know specifically what to do, that gives you a little bit of an example. You can load an example data. I don't know what happens if I click this. It probably will overwrite what I did. In fact, let me just because, we like to play. Yep. If I click load example data, it's going to put the data in the format you need. So it just overwrote what I had in here. Message, cache, true, language, and options. I don't need all that for this TTS. So I'm just going to put it back the way it was because I copied that a minute ago. And I'm going to be done and I'm going to deploy it. And now it's telling me, because I have this other up here. Let's get rid of that one. So deploy it. And now anytime there's motion, even if you move these things around, it's going to have you redeploy. Anytime there's motion in the kitchen, it should notify me on that speaker. And we'll see. I don't know if there's any motion. One way you can test things too is you can use an inject node. And you can inject whatever you need to inject to make it do its thing, if it has an input here. So in this case, I'm going to inject the string. I want to change this to string. And I'm going to say on. Get rid of this one. And when I click this, it's going to send on as the payload through to this. And then that should trigger the motion detected. So I have to deploy and I have to click this button. And if it's working right, it should speak, which it did not. So sometimes it won't send the actual payload through here. And then one of the ways you can do this now, if it's not working the way you want it to, is to look for the debug node, and you can take the output of whatever thing isn't working and see what it actually is sending, if anything at all. So I'll add that, and then I'll come over here, and I will view the sidebar, and I will click the little debug, the little picture of the bug here. And when I run it, when I inject, I should get something output here. And I don't. So that means that this is not doing what I want it to do. And my guess is because I'm doing this, it's looking at the state of that entity, and that state of that entity is not doing anything. So actually sending an on here doesn't do anything at all. So you could just put a timestamp. You could put whatever you want here. All it's doing now is checking the state of the entity when you push that button. And if the entity is on, or off, it's not going to do anything. So what you can do here is then take this out here and just verify that. So now the disallowed, or the blocked path, is when it's off, it's going to go to the blocked path. And that's a lie too. See, I don't know what I'm doing. So one more thing. Let's change this to off. Because right now the state of that entity is off. If I click this timestamp, yeah, see. So some of these nodes you can inject into and some of them you can't. Apparently in this one, under the payload, you can't send that. And let me just check one more thing here. Make sure I'm sending the right thing. The message payload. And you can change these things to different stuff. But the payload would be, yeah, I mean, you could send, it should be a string. And it should be off or on or whatever. But it's not sending it through and doing anything with it. So that's not going to work. This is useful. This inject node is useful in a lot of ways, but apparently not for this node. And if you're watching this and you say, you know, you're banging your head on the desk, tell me that I'm doing it wrong. But essentially, if there's motion on that particular sensor, then it should send the output. And you know, this is this sensor right here. I'm trying to figure out what thing I could test, but in a nutshell, that's really the simplest way you can make it talk. Now, what you can do also is if you want to get if you wanted to talk and say different things, you can actually add a switch node here as well. Like we talked about early on in the stream, you can take this output. First of all, you get rid of this. And you take the switch node, and we'll get rid of all these paths here for now. And we'll have two different paths. One will be on, and one will be off. On signifies motion, off signifies no motion. Now, on a motion detection, you probably don't want to do this. You probably don't want to have it say off every time. You don't want it on and an off every time. You may want to say there's motion detected, but you don't want to say there's no more motion detected because it's not valid necessarily, especially depending on the type of device that's sending that motion. So, for example, if you have a battery-powered device that has a battery-saving kind of logic in it, it's going to turn on motion detected. It's going to sit there for quite a long time in a lot of cases. Whatever the timeout value is, it's going to sit there until it resets that motion. What that means is if you have a lot of motion going back and forth in a room, you don't want that thing notifying. You don't want the thing up and just kind of listening all the time because it's going to eat your battery. So they have the logic built in to have a timeout value. Once it hears motion or sees motion, detects motion, it will go into a mode and it'll sit there until the timer expires. But you can, if you really want to do that, you can take this. And if there is motion detected, you would say motion detected, and then on the off path, I would just copy this, and I would change the name now to say motion cleared, and you would just change the message here it speaks to say motion cleared instead of detected. I personally wouldn't do both of those. I would say if I wanted motion detected to announce, then yeah, I would want to do that. And everybody's use case is different. So don't sit there and say, well, I want to do it this way because whatever. I mean, it may be an area where you don't have very much motion at all. And if there is motion, it's a big deal. And you do want to know when it clears. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it clears. I think you can get a false sense of security if you say motion cleared, because it doesn't mean that the motion has stopped. It just means that the timer value of the motion sensor has timed out. And then what it will do is if it senses motion after that timer sensor is timed out, it will then alert again. So you could end up with a lot of just talking back and forth. I don't know if I'm waiting for someone to walk around, but they're probably not. And then there was a question down here. Let me bring it back up. So where are we at here? Oh yeah, Bob. I knew that, Bob. Sorry about that. That thing. So what I use for that, Paul, is I use Nabukasa, because TTS Cloud Say doesn't seem to work with that particular device. And I do have that through Nabu Casa. All of my stuff speaks. So, for example, the door actions here, it goes to my smart, those are lights. Let me find where it actually talks. So in this case, I use everywhere, but you can specify devices. So mine is this one, media player everywhere. You can choose different devices specifically to that. And it's the same message, but this one is called notify, and it's a media player notification. And then the message format is a little bit different. So you can do that as well. You don't have to use the Google one. You can use the other one, which I do. In fact, all of my devices are the Amazon one, and one is the Google. Now, I will say that I do like the Google one better, primarily because the voice sounds better, and secondarily because Amazon makes me log in all the time. I'll get a notice on my integrations page saying you have an integration that needs some work, and it's because Amazon, for whatever reason, has logged me out, and I have to go re-log in with my 2FA and my CAPTCHA on the integration, and then it takes me 3 or 4 tries, and I got locked out a couple days ago because I tried too many times. Amazon thought I was being hacked. It shut my password down, so all of my stuff had to be redone in terms of new passwords and all this other stuff. It was a pain in the butt, and I don't know why that particular integration keeps requiring me to re-auth all the time. It's getting to the point where I'd rather replace all of my stuff with the Google Minis than the other one, because I haven't had any issues with that one. Plus, I can do direct Cloud Say with that and not have to go through the media player stuff. So that was a long sentence. So yes, you can do that. I'm waiting for someone to, again, move around down there and see if my Mini makes a noise. Thanks for doing the streams. I love doing these streams. I love doing the videos. I hope they're helpful for y'all. Sometimes when I wrap up a video and I watch it, I'm like, I do a lot of rambling, and I hope that y'all are getting something from those. So make sure you tell me if you aren't in the comments so I can get better and do stuff that y'all really want to see. All right, so I need to expose a toggle to disable a couple of automations to the... Oh, okay, like a motion sensor that turns light off in the evening if she's baking later in the evening. If she's baking later in the evening, I would like some whatever is being baked. Cookies, cakes, take them all. Just kidding. I don't need that stuff. I really enjoy it, but I don't need it. Is it not true or false? Binary sensors are off or on, I think, for all the binary sensors. I haven't seen a true or false state on anything. One way you can do that, to check that, if you are curious, is go to... And by the way, I hit the C key on my keyboard to get to a command window like this. Navigate to Developer Tools. And then I can search for binary sensor and see what kind of state values I get. And I think they're all going to be off or on. So you can look, ignore the unavailable, but all of them are either off or on for binary sensors. So there's no true or false. And I'm curious if I have even anything that has true or false. Let me just filter on the state. I do not have anything in my entire setup that uses the state true or false. So everything for binary sensors is either off or on. You're welcome, Paul. This works well. So did you just build it, Paul? I'm curious. I still haven't seen anything from somebody walking around. I don't know if they are or not. Where is that? Playground? Yeah, we'll see if it... It should show me here too. If I'm in the Node-RED window when something happens, it'll say the state change. I'm surprised that I can't send it an inject though. Somebody tell me why it doesn't inject when I do that. I thought I could inject, unless it's checking the state every time I do that. But even then it should... Oh, you know what I did? This is backwards too. This should be on. Oh, I got rid of conditions. Yeah, it'll send me through every single time. I'm just surprised I can't send an inject through here. And maybe I can now that I've done the switch node. Let's try that. I'll change this to get rid of the message topic. and make this string, and we'll say on, done, deploy, go. I should put this here too. I'm going to put a debug on both paths here and see if anything comes out at all. Yeah, I can't, apparently I can't inject, but now I should be able to inject into the switch node directly and see if the TTS stuff works, at least, or the logic for the switch works. Yeah. Say it. So you can see now the point of debugging is what I was talking about. It did debug it. It went to on, and it went to this motion detected one. Now if I change this to off, it should be the other path. Now it didn't speak. I don't know why. Deploy it. And now if I say off, it should fire this one, which it did. So my little friend is sitting on the desk here and it's not talking. I don't know why. But the point is, if you can get to this point and have it do something, that's debugging whether or not you're connected to your device or not. All right. Until about a month ago, my thing, TTS, also kept asking for reauthentication. But since it stopped asking, yeah, I don't know what triggers that. I don't know if a number of reboots on the Home Assistant setup does that. But it does from time to time ask me to reauthenticate. It wouldn't be so bad except that I'm using two-factor authentication, which means I need to go get my YubiKey. I used YubiKey with my phone authenticator app. So I have two-factor authentication with that. And the CAPTCHAs they use are incredibly hard for me to read. I get them wrong about 70% of the time. So it takes me 3 or 4 times till I get a CAPTCHA I can actually read. I mean, they're really hard for a human to read. It's not because I'm blind. They're just hard to read. And I can't tell half the time what the letters are. So that just makes it really even more of a pain, which is why I got locked out the other day because I tried the wrong CAPTCHA too many times. I use this for my washing machine. Oh yeah, so that's interesting. You mean like this? Let's see, automations, navigate to automations. Washer finished. So if you look on my dashboard here, and you look at the down here, it's not running right now, but this is my washing machine. You can see here that it ran earlier today, yesterday, and it ran earlier today. And I was doing that for a while. I would have it announce across my speakers whenever it was finished. And the way I do that, on my particular washing machine, if there is and I'll look here, if there's a sensor on there that it tells me, or it's not a sensor, it's like a whatever, there's logic in the washing machine. If the display is lit up, it uses about 5 watts of electricity, or 5 watts. It still uses electricity if the display is on. The display will stay on if the little logic in the machine says time to run a cleaning cycle on the washing machine. And that means that it never goes to 0, or it doesn't always go to 0. Now, right now it's 0. That means the display is off, the machine is off. And so my automation says, tell me if the washing machine is running, hasn't been running for more than 5 minutes. If it does, it tells me it's completed. And I did that for a while. I don't think my wife cares about that. So I turned it off, but it was an interesting concept. And I built a sensor because I had to build a sensor in a way that determined that 5-volt difference or 5-watt difference. And I'm going to find a washing machine here. And the way I built the sensor is I used a template here, and it's called washer running. If you look at the state of this, it's called sensor.washer running, and I built that washer running sensor here. So if the state of the washing machine consume, which is an appliance switch I have plugged it into it, it's actually less than 6, which would be 5 or less. If it's less than 6, then it considers it off, else it's on. And the reason why is if it stops running and it keeps that display lit up because it needs to run a cleaning cycle, it's still finished. It just means the display is on. So I consider it to be off if it's got 5 watts or less of electricity usage. And then, of course, I run the automation this way. I did that one here instead of doing it in Node-RED just because I was playing with it one day. But I do also do the automation for the washing machine as well, Paul. So that's how I do it. I created a template sensor or a template or sensor using a template so that the voltage I could, or the wattage I could set to a certain value and still have it read. Oh, my poor truck sensor. I need to fix that. All right, what other questions do we have today? How long have we been running this thing? We've been running about an hour and 20. So we'll go a few more minutes. This is a holiday weekend for us, so I want to not spend too much time up here today and get down there. We're going to, do some coloring and stuff like that. Also, for what it's worth, I did finally get a vaccine shot a couple days ago, and it wasn't too bad, although I do have a headache. So feeling like 90% instead of 100% today. But I'm really pleased. I really appreciate y'all asking questions today because it really is nice to be able to go through and talk about some of this stuff. If you joined the live stream a little bit late, early on I said, these live streams are really dedicated to y'all, to answering your questions and discussing whatever you want to discuss in relation to this kind of thing. My videos are more educational, and I do the videos, pre-recorded videos for upload for that purpose. And then this forum is for y'all to talk to me as best you can. It'd be awesome if I could come up with a way to do like a roundtable kind of discussion. Maybe invite some of y'all that are regulars to, they have a new thing on Discord called voice channels. So you could create a voice channel on Discord, and actually we could have an actual conversation in real time on Discord. That'd be kind of fun. So maybe sometime I'll do that, where a few of y'all can bring your questions and we'll just ask those directly on. What other questions do we have today? Anything specific y'all want to answer before we run off and do some other stuff? Oh, wait, I missed part of the comment, though. The baking comment didn't actually show up all the way on here. It shows up on my live stream. Where's the rest of my... The Restream bot actually cut that off. Well, let's bring it over here. That's interesting. All right, so let me read the rest of it. Like a motion sensor turns light off in the evening. She's baking later in the evening, having the kitchen light shut off is a pain. I use these UI toggles for vacation lighting patterns. So one of the things I did do, Bob, I showed this before, is if you look at my Node-RED, I have a couple of automations that run every day while we are in the house. One of them is to disarm the alarm system at 6 a.m. so we don't have to disarm it. Typically, we're up by then anyway. Where's my Node-RED? And what I do with this is I don't want that alarm system to be disarmed if I'm on vacation or not at home. So I use what I call a vacation state, and it checks the vacation status. So I created a helper, they call them helpers now, input text, vacation status. If the value is vacay, it does not run this disarm alarm at 6 o'clock. It keeps it running. And I have some other things that also check this status, like my thermostat eco mode for Nest. I don't go out of eco mode if I'm away from the house, because it's kind of pointless to be in eco mode if I'm going to, or it's pointless to have it turn off eco mode if I'm not going to be here. So I check that status, and I just set the status in the UI. That's something you can potentially do. You can create a button that changes that text helper to something else. So let's say if your wife pushes the I'm baking button, it changes your status and it won't run the automation in Node-RED because it's in that status. What you would have to do then is figure out how to start it back up again once she's done baking. Maybe there's something you do where I don't know how you start the automation in that case, but you could prevent it from running if she pushes the I'm baking button. And then you could push the I'm not baking anymore button to return it back to the normal state, and it would just run. And it would just check the value of the input text status, the helper, and then not run, according. So that's one way you could do that in Node-RED. And the helpers, if you're not familiar with it, if you go to, I think if you can just type helpers, you can go to navigate to helpers, and you can create a helper. You can call it a text or anything. I used to say text baking, for example. MDI cake. Is there a cake? Oh, look at that. And then just create it. And then what you do is in Node-RED, you would look at that baking value and see what it is and do what you need to do with it. So that is a way you can actually do that. Let's see here. Does anybody know how to force update NTP time on HA? So honestly, I'm just going to keep the automations I need to be able to disable in native HA. Yep, you can do that as well. That's, again, we talk about use cases all the time. Which is the use case that works best for you? And you can mix and match these things. You can keep HA stuff for the easy stuff. And then if you want to do something complex, you can do it in Node-RED. Also, blueprints there's a lot of the blueprint stuff being built now for complex automations that you can import into Home Assistant directly as well. So we have a lot of different ways we can do things that we didn't used to have before. Does anyone know how to force update NTP time? That should be an operating system thing, and it should be automatic. Force update. It depends on your system as well. Time started from that time and never updated the current time. That's weird. So you restored HA from full snapshot. It was about 2 weeks old. That's weird. Maybe that's a database setting thing. So it would be some research on the. Oh, well, what is this? Oh, they broke something. Crony is an add-on, and I suppose it won't be available. So let's just look at that real quick. Let's go to. I'm going to go to my test system. And supervisor, add-on, store, Crony, a local NTP server. Okay, wait a minute. So this is local. And actually, I'm going to install this. You know why? Because I want my cameras can't ever sync correctly. A lot of times they're blocked from making outbound calls. So if I install Crony, and is there any configuration? Is there any documentation? Okay, so it just goes out and tries to find the NTP server. I think there's not. That's default's fine. Start it up. And now I don't know if I wonder if it updates Home Assistant when it does this, or if it's just as a server. Okay, so it looks like. So Mahesh, if you install Crony as an add-on and look at the logs, my initial offset was, I was like 0.001724 seconds fast. I wonder if it would just fix your system that way. So try installing Crony and start it up and see what it does. But this is kind of cool. I can now use this as an NTP server on my network. Bonus. I'm going to do that. I would be curious to see if that fixed your problem. And I wonder if I look over here, is there anything that talks about time? It doesn't give a time. You could go in a terminal, and you probably already know this because you're asking these questions. But if I type date right here, 1502, and that's what my Windows computer says. I'm sure it's pretty close. And according to Crony, it is as well. So yeah, try that out and see if that helps at all. I don't know if it resets the time on the machine itself or if it just is a server. I suppose I could read about it. That would be too easy, right? Change mode to server. But what IP should I... Is that... I wonder if I did that. Where did it go? Where did it go? Oh, awesome. I lost my other Home Assistant. I must have typed out of it. Okay. Well, I'm curious if that's gonna actually work for you. Add-on store. I want to just look and see what this mode is set to. Mode is pool. So where is the add-on documentation? Where's the add-on page? Crony page. This isn't okay. Well, it doesn't tell me anything. Documentation. That's what I want. So log level mode. Pool references a pool of servers such as pool. Reference to okay, server. So we just say pool. All that does is where it goes to look for it. Array of server names used as time. Okay, that's fine. Does it say what it does? Accessible by all hosts on the local network, useful for setting time and device. The add-on can also be used to set the system clock. So I don't know if it does it by automatically or not, but it looks like you can use it for setting the system clock. I just don't know how you do that. Oh, here we go. The set system clock option configures Crony to set the local system clock. For some systems, it may be preferable to use different mechanism. So I guess that's going to be your mileage may vary setup, but if you set that to set system clock in the configuration, then it will, and this is already true, right? So mine is, by default, it looks like it's going to do that automatically. So set system clock is true. It should update your stuff. Just depends on how much access it has to your environment. So there we go. All right. I'm going to go ahead. If we don't have any follow-up questions here. Oh, wait, here we go. I want to make an automation in Node-RED that switches on the lights at a certain number of luminance. So what are you using for a luminance detector, first of all? I have light actions that set it on, sunrise to sunset, and I could do simply something like an entity. No, I want to do a, where is it? I could do a pole state, I suppose. And I could look at lumens for my weather station, because I have one of those. Entity ID would be Lux, I think is what that one's called. No, that's the old one. That's not going to be right. Well, anyway, you would find your luminescence sensor, and I have a few of these. I have those multi-sensor 6, so I could use any one of these luminous thingies. I don't know what the outside weather station is, but let's just say the study luminance. Let's just say that one. And you would have to say probably numerically. I'd have to figure out what the number was. But let's say it is greater than or less than, it's totally arbitrary, 100 lumens or lux or whatever. And I would check that, and then if it is that output is true, I would come over here and turn on the lights. Yeah, so whatever your lumen sensor is, you just put it in here. You just look for and this polls every 60 seconds. You could also, if your sensor updates regularly, you could just do a trigger state. So the same thing here, you would take a trigger state and you'd say luminescence. So that one, and then if the current state, you change it to numeric probably, and it would be greater or less than again, let's say 100. If it does that, then you would have the allowed path, and then you would turn the light on. So you could do a pulse state every so many seconds, or if your your system updates on it, and I think Xiaomi, probably battery powered, you probably want to do just the trigger state. If it updates your lumens, then you would turn the light on after a certain limit. I would also add something like a timer, some sort of timer node in here, like a stop timer. So, because what you don't want to do is, if you have something where the clouds are coming in and out, you don't want it to turn the light on if the lumens are down for like 30 seconds or less, right? So you would set a timer of, let's just say 60 seconds. And then 60-second timer. Be done with that one. And then you would just put it through here. And if the value is true, now you would have to stop this timer, right? So you would start it, but if it were not below that, you would have to stop the timer, right? If the value actually returns back. And I do that something like this. In my refrigerator door scenario, I apply this path. I check the value here. If it's on, it starts the timer. If the value goes to off, which is the disallowed path, right? Blocked path, the other path, it will stop the timer. And you just do the same input. You send the word stop to the timer as a message payload, and then it will stop the timer. So what you would do is luminescence drops below a threshold here, starts the timer. If the timer expires, it turns the light on, because you're assuming then it's going to be dark for a while or whatever. If the lumens go back up again, you either stop the timer before it turns the light on, or you turn the light back off again through this same path. Yeah, you could really get fancy with it, however you want to do that. But that is an option for you to be able to turn the light on with lumens, a lumen sensor, luminescence sensor, a lux sensor, etc. All right. So what I'm going to do is wrap it up today. I want to get down and do some Easter holiday stuff with the kids and family stuff. And so I really appreciate y'all today watching the show, the live stream. If you have any questions for me after this, then hit me up in Discord. Again, my response time will be based on other goings on, family stuff, etc. But I try to respond to pretty much every comment, and I try to respond to the Discord when I have time. So that's where we're at now. Y'all have a great holiday weekend if that's your thing, and be safe out there. And we will see you on either the next video or the next live stream. And of course, always got a plug. Subscribe, hit the bell icon, just so that you get notified when I do these things. And have a great rest of the weekend. Thanks, everyone.